Hey guys, this is John. I'm playing Bommel in the 15-minute pool on ICC. This is a player I played before. I'm opening with D4. Bommel wants to abort. Why do you want to abort, Bommel? I say that like I was a little annoyed because last time I remember they did this same thing. They offered an early abort, and I think I took it last time. Maybe I should take it this time, but they seem willing to play. See, the thing is, this is the 15-minute pool, so if you enter it, I feel like you should play the game and not offer an abort. If it's a one-time thing, that's fine, but I distinctly remember this player doing that another time. So, okay, we're playing a game, though. We have a Queen's Gambit declined exchange variation. And I'm going to play Queen C2. Okay, and here I can play either Knight GE2 or Knight F3. I usually play Knight GE2, but let's go Knight F3. This is maybe going to illustrate the plan of the minority attack on the queen side. So let me castle here. Usually they play Knight F8. And white can start prepping the minority attack. Okay, so Knight E4. I think against this move I should pull my bishop back to F4. Taking on E4 is possible, but actually, if I take on E4 and they take back with the pawn, I take with the knight, I'm defending G5. And also if I take E4, they take with the bishop, I take on H7. I feel like I've had this before. I'm getting some serious deja vu. Maybe I've even played Bommel in this same line? I can't remember. But at any rate, I'm going to take the pawn. Maybe we've played this exact same line and they made the same blunder. I played this player at least once. Maybe twice before. But yes, as it stands right now, I just want to keep pawn because if black takes on G5, I can take with my E knight and I will be attacking H7. So I don't know if they'll be able to demonstrate anything significant here, but we'll find out. Hope everyone's doing well. I'm actually recording some content in advance. I am playing a tournament this weekend. I'm playing the Minnesota Open. It's our state championship. So it's about 1 a.m. right now on a Thursday, just trying to get a couple videos ready for this coming weekend. So black plays Knight F6, looking to trade. I can certainly swap down. I think that's fine to do. I can move this knight as well, but taking and then eventually playing, like, say, rook a c1. So knight takes f6, bishop takes f6, bishop takes f6, queen takes f6, rook a c1, something like that looks fine. Maybe trading makes it a little easier for black, though. I mean, this is just a position where I'm going to have to play slowly and convert my extra pawn. There's not going to be an overnight solution, an overnight win. So, what to do? I mean, I can move the knight too, like knight c3 and keep a pair of knights on the board. Probably they'll put their bishop on e6 in that case. The only thing is if I swap too much, I feel like that might make it easier for black. So let's actually... Yeah, I'm going to withdraw this knight. I'm just deciding where to go with it, either to c3 or maybe even to d2 to support the other knight. Actually, d2 is not bad. Let's go there. So now the knights are protecting each other. Black will probably put that bishop on e6. I think that's a logical square for it. I don't necessarily have to go for a minority attack on the queen side anymore. Okay, black plays h6. Probably I'll play bishop to h4. Just keep the pressure on the knight. No reason to simply trade on f6 right away. So if bishop e6, probably knight c4 or maybe even rook fc1. I could play rook a c1, but I kind of want to keep my rook on the A file, I feel like there will still be action on the queen side. Maybe eventually I can get a knight to c5. So perhaps even knight b3 to c5 is an option. Okay, knight d5 looking for a trade of the bishops. That's a trade I think I will agree to because getting the pair of bishops off the board is nice. I never have to worry about black having two bishops. Next, I'll likely play a3, rule out any knight b4 business. Yeah, let's play this one. So still black hasn't committed this bishop. I'm thinking that e6 and g4 are still the likely destinations for the bishop. Probably e6, because if bishop g4, at the very least I could play knight e5 and attack that bishop with tempo. Yep, bishop e6. So now, I think I'll probably play rook ac1 in this case. And maybe go queen c5. The position is clarified a little bit, so I don't feel the need to play rook fc1 anymore. Yeah, black plays rook f to c8. Maybe queen c5 now, just looking to trade. Trade down further. If I go knight e4, I would run into bishop f5, pinning me. I could play knight b3, but black might play b6 and deny my knight the use of the c5 square. So I think queen c5 is a good option. And if black takes, I'll take with a rook, getting ready to double, and I'll still be hitting this pawn on c6. I know sometimes these games where one side makes an early blunder are not so instructive, but winning a one game, converting the material is an important skill in chess. So I'm not taking this any less seriously. So black is probably trying to get the knight into a4. I could play b3 and just try to deny them the use of that square. I could also double up my rooks. So if rook fc1, knight a4, then play rook back to c2, that looks okay because then I could play b3 thereafter. So let's do that. And if knight a4, rook 5 to c2, bishop f5, there's e4, which is important because otherwise I might have to give up this pawn. So yeah, bishop f5, we have e4. As it stands, I'll probably just try to push this knight back with the b3 move coming up. Okay, so black plays a5, gaining some space. Not bad. Could play b3 now, but I don't want to give them a hook to attack with a4 later. Maybe knight e5. Yeah, let's play knight e5. Still, if bishop f5, we have e4. We're both playing pretty quick. For me, I haven't had to face too many tough decisions since I won that pawn early on. Okay, so now I'm thinking play knight d3 and get the knight into c5. I know that black may play a4 and try to clamp down on the b3 square, but I think getting my knight to c5 is useful enough. So I'll do that. Let's say the game goes a4, knight c5, rook c7. I'll have to find an alternate way to attack those weaknesses, b7 and potentially a4. Okay, so black is going to draw this pawn forward. Rook c3, there's knight d5. I don't want to mess with that, so let's play this move. They're probably hoping to prove that d4 is weak in the future, but I don't know if that will be the case because my knight coming up to c5 next will win a tempo on this pawn. Okay, bishop g6. Yeah, I think they're trying to tie me down a little bit. Like, let's say I were to play f3, trying to reinforce e4, then they could play rook d8 and try to go attack this pawn. So I believe that's black's plan right now. I could play knight e5 and attack this bishop, but if knight e5, probably bishop h7. So I'm still leaning towards knight c5. One thing I just want to make sure is if knight c5 Rook d8, knight takes b7, rook takes d4 if I'm still coming out on top there. Probably I am. c6 is loose. I could play something like f3 at that point and just make sure e4 is well defended. So if knight c5, I'm thinking black will probably play rook c7, defending b7 and enabling this rook to come to d8 to attack this pawn. So I should have my response prepared to that. Maybe rook d3 at that point. And if rook d8, or rook c3 rather, so if rook d8, I have rook d3. That would work. Okay, yeah, let's do this one. So d4 is our soft spot right now. Everything else is good for us. Looking good. And rook b8 was played, so they're probably trying to go rook d8 then instead of the rook c7, rook d8 suggestion I had. Now I could play a4 so that after rook d8 I can play knight d to b3. Then I'd be hitting a5 too. And this knight would help defend d7. I'm liking that. I could also play knight db3 directly, but then black has a reason to play a4. And if I jump my knight into a5, rook c7, it's probably still good for white, but I think I like a4 here even better, so I will play that and just create a target here. Now that black's rook is no longer on a8, it can't help out in the defense of this pawn. So that's what we're trying to pinpoint at the moment. I'm still doing okay time-wise, so 7:51. Black might try f5 to try to shake up the structure, but I could even play f3 if I wanted. In addition to taking on a5 maybe, and then taking on b7. That's also a strong option. Yeah, black does play f5. I think that's a correct decision because otherwise they're going to have no counterplay. They need to go for something. So f3 is very tempting. Just push the pawn, defend the center. I'm probably going to play that. Maybe their idea is bishop f7, though. I should consider that for a moment. So if f3, f takes e4, bishop f7, they'd be threatening to take on b3 and then take a4. Okay. I could play e5 right now. That surrenders the d5 square, though. What else do we have at our disposal? Knight takes a5, a sharp move. And then if rook takes d4, I can play knight c takes b7, threatening knight takes c6. That could be really good. Also, rook takes c6 is threatened too. So if knight takes a5, let's say f takes e4, still knight b takes c6, or knight, I'm getting confused, knight c takes b7, then I'm coming in with rook takes c6 very quickly, aren't I? I think that's good. I think I'm going to go for that. Normally, I'm not this bold when I'm ahead in material. I often just try to nurse the advantage and slowly increase the evaluation in my favor. But here, since the center's a little fragile, but I do have these opportunities on the queen side, I'm going to try to strike and capitalize. Okay, so black takes there. Black hasn't slowed down at all. Bommel's been playing very quickly still. So I think I'm going to take this way. Point being that if rook takes d4, I have rook takes c6, forking the knight and the bishop. Yeah, I don't see any flaw with this. The back rank is covered. I have a rook on d1. So this is just a fork between these two minor pieces. I don't see what black plays here. They can't play this rook anywhere that would help out on the back rank either. Like rook d8, I just take it with my knight. So I think they're stuck, losing a piece. Very likely they just missed that rook takes c6 was going to fork 2 pieces. And that's that. Okay, so black resigned. Yeah, weird. I get this strange sense of deja vu. And I was giving Bommel a hard time because I'm positive they've done this before. Like, we get paired and then they immediately ask for an abort. I hope it's not that I'm recording and they don't want to be recorded, because if that was the case, all they had to do was send me a tell. But I just get kind of annoyed when people enter the pool, which is specifically to pair you as fast as possible, and then they offer an abort right when the game starts. Like, I had to wait like probably almost 10 minutes to get a game today, actually. So I was like, finally, I got a game, and someone aborted immediately or wanted to abort. But I have this sense of deja vu that we played this before. I'll try to use the search feature on ICC to locate that game before I wrap up here. But we might have played basically the same line, and I think black might have made a similar mistake, like dropping a pawn at the outset of a Queen's Gambit declined. We'll see. So let's go through this. So we have a exchange, Queen's Gambit declined, white taking on d5, and move 4 is a good time to do this. If you wait a move, black might have a couple extra options. Like, say you play bishop g5 here, and they go bishop e7, and then you take. I don't know if I've ever seen anyone do this, but knight takes e7 is possible. And there might be a trade of the bishops. And since black's a bit cramped compared to white, they might not mind getting one pair of minor pieces off the board. So on move 4 here, after knight f6, this is the correct moment to exchange that d pawn. So c takes d5, e takes d5, then we pin bishop g5, knight bd7. So this is the classic trap. Some of you might be wondering, why not take the pawn on d5? Well, the answer is black can respond with knight takes d5, and then if bishop takes d8, bishop b4 check. This is a trap I saw at nationals one year, I think when I was in 7th grade. Board 1 in the final round. I was sitting right next to that board. I think I was literally on board 2. And I saw one of the kids fall for this trap, and thereby ending their chances for a national championship. Queen d2, take here, and black is up a piece. So do not fall for that trap of knight takes d5 on move 6. That's a poisoned pawn. You're going to feel clever for about 2 seconds, and then your opponent's going to take the knight, and you're going to realize what they're up to. So, fair warning. So I played e3, then black played bishop e7, breaking the pin, bishop d3, and queen c2. So I've played games before on my channel with knight ge2. This is a standard way of playing the position. And in fact, the way white has played this move order, knight ge2 could almost be expected here, because if white goes down this line that I've been pursuing, there's a strong argument for playing that move with the plan of, after castling, playing f3 and then e4 and advancing in the center. And therein lies the value in keeping your king's knight development flexible. White hadn't committed the knight to f3 early on, so they give themselves knight ge2 as a possibility. But I decided to play it in more classical fashion and just play knight f3, rook e8, and then castles. And here Bommel blundered with knight e4. I don't think there's any other way to describe that move. It just loses a pawn. So usually black plays knight f8. And at this point, there's several moves white can play, but the general plan is to play rook b1 and go for b4, b5, a minority attack, using less pawns to attack more, trying to create a weakness on c6. White can start with h3. They can play rook ab1 directly if they want. Knight e5 is played. So there's many ways to play this position, but that's the usual plan white goes for. But instead, knight e4, and just to confirm, let's add the engine. Sometimes knight e4 is possible. Like, this isn't always a terrible idea for black. It just so happens here that they lose the h7 pawn. I think if black wants to play this way, they should first play h6, bishop h4, and then knight e4. That way, there's no pawn on h7 that's hanging, So imagine I were to play the same way. Bishop takes e4. They could take on h4, and yeah, I'm not grabbing this guy. I could give a check and then pull back the bishop somewhere, but I'm not winning a pawn. So maybe they just got their moves confused. But yeah, knight e4 is clearly bad. And I'm glad I paused for a second. I didn't believe them entirely. Like something about this just set off some warning bells in my head like, hey, black's not supposed to be able to do that, right? Because at first I was convinced. I was like, oh yeah, okay, knight e4. I guess I'm going to pull my bishop back to f4. I was thinking about that move. But this too could be a useful reminder for you if you play the white side of these lines. If that pawn on h7 is still standing on that square, then knight e4 may not work. So d takes e4, knight takes e4. Yep, now we've banked a pawn. Black could also play bishop takes g5 if they want to give up the pawn this way. But in doing it this way, they weaken their king. Although they do keep one of the center pawns. I think the way that Bommel played it was slightly better, just giving up the central pawns, is at least they have some lines in the middle that they can hopefully use to gain some compensation. So knight f6 was played. And here I decided to drop the knight back to d2. This might be unnecessary. I mean, the first thing I looked at was just chopping a bunch of pieces, and then I think I mentioned, playing rook ac1, which looks completely fine. I just didn't want to clarify the position to such an extent that it would be easy for black to find moves. And also I wanted to keep it a bit clogged up, just in case that this bishop has free reign like in this resulting position. It's probably not much, and maybe objectively I should trade. But I'm always looking to set my opponent problems, and especially lower-rated players. I feel like if you keep more tension in the position, they're just more likely to make mistakes. That's been my experience. So I played the knight back to d2, trying to keep the c-file clear. I have a bit of a superfluous knight problem here. These knights are stepping on each other's toes, taking away potential squares from each other. But given that this knight could go to c4 or b3, I don't think it'll interfere with my other knight too much. Black played h6. I think they should just develop the bishop to e6, but instead, knight d5. And now I took on e7. Yeah, it looks fine. And as I mentioned, I like the fact that I don't have to battle against black's bishop pair anymore. Here I played a3, just protecting against knight b4. Bishop e6, rook ac1. Natural move, take the half-open file, prepare queen c5. Which I did play. This wasn't strictly necessary either. I can see some other useful moves like knight e5 or maybe a preparatory move like rook fe1 if I want to play around with the idea of e4. But I'm up a pawn, and simplifying is usually the modus operandi when you're ahead a pawn. So here I took with a rook, but the engine likes d takes c5 much better. Probably because white gains the use of the d4 square. I didn't think about that. Because normally, when you have a half-open file with a rook on it, you want to keep that file. And especially if there's an enemy pawn on that same file, you want to try to double up and attack it if you can. So I instinctively capture with my rook, but I can see why the engine prefers d takes c5 instead. If I establish a knight on d4, black can't do anything about that, really. Supported by my e3 pawn. It does make these rooks look kind of silly, though. Black's rook doesn't do much on the c-file. Mine is just staring at a pawn here. I guess this other rook could come over to d1, though. My rook on c1 is not as bad as black's rook on c8 right here. I'm really not sure why they played rook e to c8. First of all, the c-pawn wasn't a target yet, and I would also question whether they should box in this rook. And something like rook a d8 looks more normal here. Try to play down the d and e files. So queen c5, we get this trade. Knight b6. I thought this was a clever plan for black, at least, trying to go for knight a4 and a5. Black has a majority of pawns on the queen side, so at least black is trying to fight back and gain some counterplay. Rook f to c1, knight a4. I drop my rook back. And now a5. So as I noted, it's important that on bishop f5 we can always play e4. Because if we didn't have e4, this rook would have to go somewhere and black could take the pawn on b2. So I had to foresee that. a5, I played the knight into e5. This felt like the right time to activate this knight. So I like this move. They played back to b6, and now knight d3. So this little maneuver makes my knight bound for c5, which is a great outpost square. Note that I didn't play knight b3 because black is controlling that square with their bishop. And if knight e4, there's bishop f5. I thought this would slow me down, although maybe there's something tactical. Counterattack this rook. This could be. But knight d3 felt normal, and it's what I set out to do with knight e5 as well. So bishop f5, inducing us to play e4. You know, even though Bommel lost in a few more moves, like I don't really mind the way they played it. I mean, rook takes d4 was probably too much coming up, but at least they're trying to set me problems. They're not just sitting there and letting white slowly increase the advantage. He's trying to create a weakness on d4. It's not too bad what black's doing. That's the difference between human and computer practice, because a human here wants to create some play as black, whereas an engine wouldn't do that. An engine would just sit back and accept the fact that it's much worse and just play moves to try to keep the evaluation from swinging any further in white's favor. But a human rarely wants to play like that. It's depressing, and you're not going to win many games doing that. So I can see why a lot of people just try to mix it up, myself included. I mean, when I see a game trending away from me, I'll often make some radical decision to try to change the course of the game. Grandmaster Yermolinsky calls those trend-breaking moves. Okay, so these last couple of moves. So here I jumped into c5, attacking the b-pawn. I thought black might want to play rook c7, making way for this rook to come over. That way, at least this rook potentially has a future on the 7th rank, like maybe it can come over to e7 and help attack e4. Rook ab8 is very passive. So it also leaves this pawn undefended. There might not be a good solution for black period here, but I think rook c7 was a better try. And here I played a4. That's a positionally desirable move, but I had my doubts about it at the time because this structure is somewhat fragile. So with black getting ready to play rook d8, I need to have a game plan at the ready. But mostly I was trying to prepare knight db3, and I didn't want black to be able to respond with a4, so that was the prime rationale. And we fixed the pawn on a5. It's a target now. So black played rook d8. We get knight db3 in. So now a5's attacked. We have these pawns defended by both of our knights. Black played f5. Again, the computer's not going to like that move, but I can perfectly understand why black did this. They're trying to at least cause me some problems. Maybe in this case, it's not the best, but really, what else does black do here? Knight d7, trying to swap. Yeah, I guess in this case, at least, if knight takes a5, there's rook takes d4. Okay, so I could see why knight d7 might be strictly the best move available. Wow, and the engine wants me to play knight takes b7 here. I probably would not have played that. I see what the engine is up to. It wants to do this and then win c6 and have a ton of pawns for the piece. But if you're white here and you've been up a pawn for a while, you're probably not going to want to go for anything that could potentially imbalance the game to such an extent that your opponent would be happy with that. So, yeah, I would not have played knight takes b7. I'm almost certain I would take on d7 and try to maintain the status quo. So f5 probably does hasten black's defeat, but can't really blame black. And here I thought a little bit. I wasn't sure whether to push to e5 to defend with f3 or do the move I played in the game, knight takes a5. And ultimately I decided that my attack on b7 was coming quickly, and with that, the attack on the c6 pawn, so it was okay to abandon the d4 and potentially the e4 pawn. Oh, okay, actually, okay, this is the move that really put it over the edge, I think. F takes e4, but it's already almost +2 here. So even if black plays rook takes d4, knight c takes b7, rook takes a4, rook takes c6, that's again a fork, right? Maybe it's more of the same, although they have rook takes a5 at the end. This is a nice forcing line. Knight takes, take on f5 at the end, and white is going to be up 2 pawns in an endgame, probably winning, but it'll take some care. This pawn is doubled. So that line is initiated with black taking on d4 first. So knight takes a5, rook takes d4, knight c takes b7, take here, and then the very clever retreat, bishop e8. That's an incredibly precise line. Yeah, black's not going to find that line unless they spend some time. I certainly didn't see that line from the white side. It's a cool one, though. Yeah, now they take here, and as I was just demonstrating, take, and white will try to win with the 2 extra pawns. So, yeah, from the black point of view here, you're probably going to be pretty desperate. And, I mean, there might be a temptation just to play a move quick and say, oh, well, I'm probably losing. Let's just see what happens. But that line I just showed demonstrates that even in positions that look outwardly lost, there's sometimes unexpected resources. So f takes e4, and now knight c takes b7, and rook takes d4 happens, but the issue is here, bishop e8 wouldn't faze me. I would just take, and black's rook already needs to be on a4, so they can play rook takes a5. Like here they could do this, but it's not going to be enough. Like I could just move my knight if I want, and white's up a piece. So I don't see any salvation for black here, and that's why they resigned. I don't think they saw anything either. But even here, okay, that's very clever. Yeah, I didn't see that either. This is still bad for black, but check this line out. Knight d5, rook takes g6, knight f4. Attacking the rook and threatening knight e2. Computers. They just come up with all sorts of stuff. They make us feel so inadequate sometimes. White's still +2, but 2.5. But that would have been an unpleasant surprise had this occurred. Let's say I do this. Check. King f1, let's say. Take. I guess black's taking on a4 at the end. Yeah, with my knights bottled up like this, all awkward on the A and the B files, this isn't a walk in the park. White should win probably still, but I would not have liked to face knight d5 followed by knight f4. So the best line, according to the computer after this, is to play knight c6, attacking this rook and also that rook. And then knight e2 check, king f1, knight takes c1, knight takes d4, rook takes b7. So this way white goes for an ending up 2 pawns. Here, attacking the knight, knight d3, b3, and white manages to keep both of those pawns too. Again, should be winning, but there's work to be done. So, to summarize this game, a normal Queen's Gambit decline exchange at the outset, and then black did not insert h6 right here. If they're going to go for that knight e4 plan, I think they have to play h6 first. For black, it makes sense to simplify the position and offer trades. They are somewhat cramped, especially with their minor pieces, so it's understandable why knight e4 might want to be played. It was just mistimed. And after this, I was trying to convert my extra pawn. The engine suggestion of d takes c5 went unnoticed by me, but that could have been good here. And later, a key moment was reached when I made the decision to play knight takes a5, abandoning my d and my e pawns, and it appears that black needed to find that precise continuation with rook takes d4, knight c takes b7, rook takes a4, rook takes c6, bishop e8 to have a shot. Incredibly tough line to find, though. And in the final position, If we go back, yeah, right here. So knight d5 could have kept some hope alive with the idea rook takes g6, knight f4. All right, hope you guys enjoyed this game, and I'll be back again soon with another video. Talk to you guys later. Bye.